Welcome to Wednesday, welcome to Wednesday night's Bible study. My name is Philip Brand. This is Seth Parnell.
Hello.
I do not know if we are actually having Bible study on campus Wednesday night this week. Yeah. We have ice outside. There is someone that is cleaning off our parking lots, but our sidewalks are still slippery. And on Wednesday night, we have a lot of people here, and literally in every square inch of the campus. Every room is used on Wednesday night. So that means you have to walk from building A to building C to building B, which we now have. And so I just don't know. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do. So you might be sitting at home knowing that we canceled, or you might be sitting at home knowing that we didn't cancel. Either way, we're having a Bible study.
Because you're in the future.
Yeah. And we are back in Exodus chapter 21, which is an expansion of the Ten Commandments. Now, that expansion has to do with God knows that we will not be able to keep the Ten Commandments. And so there are going to be certain situations that are going to come up that he already sees that is going to happen. And so when those situations happen, he wants to give us clear instructions on how to think through those situations. So he doesn't cover in Scripture all the possibility of the situations and every aspect, everything that could happen. But he does give us what's called case studies to say, this happened over here. It is like this case study here. This was the verdict here. So let's take this and come up with a verdict for what has just happened here. Like I said last week, this is how our judicial system runs. If there's going to be a judgment, they cite cases of the past to give evidence or support for the judgment that they're about to make.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's happening here. And tonight we are talking about people losing their lives. And last week we talked about how if you take someone's life, you lose your life. We talked about that. Here, though, it is cases that would deserve something less than the death penalty, even though someone has died. Okay, so that's where we start. That's not where we finish.
Okay.
But that's where we start. Okay, so verse 18. When men quarrel, because men are going to quarrel. And can I just throw out here that that particular word men does not mean just men. It means men as a human race. It means mankind, which includes women. I just want to throw out there that women quarrel just as much as men do. And both men and women have had arguments through the span of time that resulted in blows. Right? Yep. Some of the most entertaining fights, and I'm not making fun of anybody, I'm just saying most entertaining fights in high school was between two girls.
Call them cat fights?
Yeah, that's what we used to call them. It was just very entertaining. I'm not saying that the guys weren't entertaining too. It was horrible. I know it's horrible to say that, but girls can scrap just as much as boys can, okay? Or guys can't. So when men or women quarrel and one strikes the other with a stone, like, wow. Or with his fist, and the man does not die but takes to his bed. This means that injury has been inflicted. The argument that probably started with words wound up ticking someone off to where they did the first blow, and then there was a second blow and a third blow and a fourth blow. And one of the people dominated the other one and caused serious injury to that person. And so he has to take to bed in order to recover from his injuries or her injuries, either one. Verse 19, then if the man rises again and walks outdoors with his staff, he who struck him shall be clear. Only he shall pay for the loss of time, and shall have him thoroughly healed. So if you strike somebody, if you get into an altercation, that person can't work for a while. If you cause that harm to happen, you're going to have to compensate. Mm-hmm. And this seems to be whether or not you're defending yourself or not. Like if the other person started it and you finished it, the finisher still has to compensate for the guy. If the guy started it and the guy couldn't finish it, the defender couldn't finish it, it's the same thing. This shows that there is a equality to the value of human life. So there's a value, an equal value. This does imply that it might be a case where he doesn't come out. Mm-hmm. And then that would be eye for eye, tooth for tooth, because you actually killed somebody. So, yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. If someone claims self-defense, like, there might have been a quarrel where I didn't want to fight, but I had to defend myself. I don't know what happens at that point. Probably some judges and stuff has to go on, but it does not talk about that in this particular passage of Scripture. Yeah. All right, so that's the first case. Here's the second one. When a man strikes his slaves, that means a man is going to strike his slave. Mm-hmm. Now, what we talked about last week and what I need to remind everybody of is that God does not want people to be slaves. He wants them to be free. Like in his kingdom, there aren't any slaves in his kingdom. But he knows that people are going to be people because we're fallen, and he gives us the opportunity to have freedom of choice. And so some of those choices is slavery becomes a part of a government or a country, and you are born into that governmental system, and so you have to operate within it. Mm-hmm. And so to operate within it, he gives a set of rules to govern it, not because he approves, but because he knows the hardness of man's heart. Okay? So when a man strikes his slave, which it seems to be something that you do. I mean, what do you do if a slave disobeys you? I don't know. It seems here, strike him. I don't like that at all, and I don't think God likes it either, but that's what happens. If you strike a slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. In other words, there's limits to how you can punish a slave, because a slave has human rights, not the same type of human rights that we have in this. Like, sure, I think we have gotten away from a biblical view of human rights. Mm-hmm. Okay,
it's the human value.
It's the human value. Yeah. Every human is valuable, right? And so, if you kill your slave, your life is going to have to pay for their life. It's eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. So it says, dies under his hand, he shall be avenged. That avenging means that his life will be taken. All right. So this is also another area where we know that God views a slave's life equal to a master's life. There is no lesser lives, if you will. Yeah. Okay. Verse 14, but if the slave survives a day or two... I'm not laughing, but that is just, what is that, Seth? If he survives, let's say, a day or two.
Not 3,
let's give it a day or two. See if he survives a day or two. Yeah. He is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. In other words, if it's a day or two, then it wasn't life-threatening. He may have been hurt, but it wasn't life-threatening. He shall not be avenged. I don't know where else to go with that, other than to say the value of the slave's life is very valuable. The master has limits, and you have to have some way, I guess, of keeping the slaves in line. And so this is how mankind has decided to keep slaves in line. God doesn't necessarily approve of it, but since you're going to be born in this system, here are some rules about it. So when you hear that, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the first idea that there's value to the human life.
Yeah.
Same value the master has over the slave. But then it's also interesting, God's accounting for man's fallenness. That he's gonna do this. He's gonna have slaves. So we're gonna set up some rules to show you that there's still a law that goes beyond this country, beyond this world, that we're gonna have to keep in place.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the hope is that it would eventually lead to like what this country did. Freedom for the slaves.
Yeah.
And then at least in the past, where we had a healthy view of equality, to where all races can use the same water fountain, they can go to the same restaurants, they can go to the same stores, that sort of thing, which is very healthy. And also, that's the way the kingdom's going to be. People are going to be free. You can go to any store. It doesn't matter your race. It does matter your religion, because Jesus is going to rule, right? I mean, can we be fair with that?
Sure.
Yeah, but everything else is this concept of value of life. But since you're in a fallen world that isn't going to be fixed for a while until Jesus comes back, this is how you go. And so, is not to be avenged, for the slave is his money. In other words, the 2 days that the slave was out of work was a punishment to the master for overly punishing his slave, punishing his slave to the point where he couldn't work.
Right.
So the master does get a judgment as a natural consequence of what he did wrong.
Right.
Okay. The other thing I know about this is that society as a whole held masters accountable for how they treated their slaves. So it was people in the community also looking in, because they had slaves, and there was some accountability in that particular regard. All right, verse 22, when men strive together to hit a pregnant woman, I read that totally wrong. When men strive together to hit when men strive together, which means they're fighting, and they hit a pregnant woman, so that her child come out. I don't know why it's not comes, but it's come out. But there is harm. The one who hit her shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband shall impose on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. So what's happened is she's been hit, the baby comes out, and there's some type of harm. It's either harm to her or harm to the child. There's a fine that's going to have to be paid. You, first of all, should not have been exchanging blows. You should have gone to the authorities to work this out before you hit each other. You didn't do that, and now somebody innocent has gotten in the middle, or accidentally was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and has gotten hurt because of your stupidity.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to have to fine. It does say, as the woman's husband shall impose on him. I do know that whatever he imposes has to be agreed with the judges, because right next it says he shall pay as the judges determine. So he can't just have, the sky's the limit.
Right.
So judges have to agree on it. Verse 23, but if there is harm, then you shall pay life for life. In other words, the harm is if the baby dies or if the woman dies, whichever one. So you, in your altercation, have killed a woman. Now, what is kind of unclear here is if both men lose their lives, because they're both responsible for creating the situation, the circumstance that caused this woman to be hit with something. Now, hit is not necessarily just with fists. It could be with something they're swinging at each other. It could be them pushing each other and then they, fall back into her or whatever. But nonetheless, if she dies, it's equal to killing somebody, and it's life for life. It's capital punishment. And so he says, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. So the crime has to fit the punishment. This gives limits on revenge. So revenge isn't a blank check. You can't just continue to go vengefully after a person over and over again. There are limits. You can only go within a certain framework for revenge. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
That's interesting. A couple of things. I mean, how easy is it to hurt a baby?
Yeah.
You know, they're tussling with each other, you know, throwing fists that a man would throw, and then you end up throwing that at a baby. And if, let's just say, the baby dies, well, the man loses his life.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Well, let's be clear here. She's pregnant.
Correct. Inside the womb.
Inside the womb. Yeah, so I don't want anybody to think she's holding the baby. She's not. Because it hasn't come out yet.
Yep.
It's going to come out, but it's...
Right.
Yeah.
But that just, it makes me think of the sanctity of life.
Yeah.
And this baby is inside the mother's womb.
And there's repercussions.
And there's repercussions for you damaging this child.
Yeah.
And just how it doesn't take much strength from a man to do that, but it's going to be, you know, pretty devastating on a baby.
Yeah, pretty devastating.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, so that leads us to verse 26. Yeah. When the man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, notice the value is equal. It's equal. It's not one above the other. It's not the woman above the man. It's not the man above the woman. It's equal. And destroys it, he shall let the slave go free because of his eyes. In other words, there's limitation to what you can do to a slave. And if you cause permanent bodily harm, that you have gone too far. There's a point where you trying to keep them in line goes too far, and you need to make sure you don't cross that line. If you do, that slave goes free. Another scenario that is kind of the same way. If he knocks out the tooth of his slave, male or female, either one of them, he shall let the slave go free because of his tooth. In other words, it's a permanent injury. So now we have a case that says if there's a permanent injury to a slave, you have to let that slave go free, which would apply to if you lame them for life, if you do any other type of bodily harm like that, that is a permanent part of who they are now, that slave needs to go free.
Yeah.
So it's a value of human life. Yeah. So that ends that particular section. We're about to go to an animal section. But any final thoughts before we go to the next thing?
Yeah, God values life.
Yeah.
Life is very important.
I think we see that over and over again. And let's go back to, if we would just keep the Ten Commandments, we wouldn't have to look at these case studies.
Right.
Like if we, because what is the summary of the Ten Commandments?
Love God, love
people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, verse 28. When an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox shall be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall not be made liable. A couple of things about this. First of all, stoning was for humans, but this particular ox is going to be stoned. Okay, so he killed a man, he killed a woman, his life has to be taken because he did that. The second thing is there's a level at which animals are responsible for their actions. I think this is something that we play around with in America. I've got the dog. We think they're cute. Look at what they did. Look at what they chose to do. Look at this. But then when they do something wrong, we say that they're just an animal. Right? So if they played with us their entire life, but they bit somebody, it's just an animal. They don't really know what they're doing. Well, either they know what they're doing or they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. Okay? So you can't have it both ways. So an animal that is domesticated can often do something wrong. And when that happens, they are responsible for whatever they did wrong. So in this case, an ox taking a life of a person, the ox is responsible for this and must lose its life. Yeah. Verse 29, but if the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past, so this has happened before, and you didn't take care of it, you didn't stone him to death as the owner, and its owner has been warned but has not kept it under control, kept it tied down, and it kills a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. So the ox dies and the owner dies. Here's something interesting. If a ransom is imposed on him, then he shall give for the redemption of his life whatever is imposed upon him. In other words, if the judge is in the town and the person that has lost a loved one to this ox says, just give me 100 sheep and 3 oxen, and we'll call it, they're not going to say call it even, but you can spare, you don't have to die.
Right.
Just give me this and you don't have to die. Then that a ransom can be paid so that the person does not have to die because of what his ox has done.
Wow.
This is a scenario that is a gracious offer to somebody, especially because they've been negligent concerning their animal.
Right.
If it gores a man's son or daughter, right, the man doesn't do anything about it and it gores a man's son or daughter, he shall be dealt with according to this same rule. In other words, if it's the first time, he should be stoned. He should be gotten rid of. If the ox gores a slave, male or female, the owner shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. In other words, gore them to death. You have to pay for the slave so that they can replace the slave. And then the ox has to be stoned, which shows that the human life was worth something. So life for a life in that regard. So thoughts about that? I know we're doing a lot of thoughts about that, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you have to be held accountable for what your property does.
Yeah.
You know, an animal has actions, and if you know they're prone to these actions, and you've not taken any kind of actions to make sure they don't do that, then it's your responsibility.
Yeah. There's no, it's not my fault.
Right.
He's an ox.
Right.
There's none of that happening. A wild ox would be different because nobody owns him.
Sure. Yeah.
And maybe you should have been more careful going up to that ox. Yeah. Right? Should be respectful. All right. So here we go. Laws about restitution. We're going to talk about some pits here. When a man opens a pit, or when a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make restoration. He shall give money to its owner, and the dead beast shall be his. So the reason that they dug these pits was so that they could store water for the dry season. And if you left those pits uncovered to where something could fall in, it was your responsibility to cover the pit. You didn't do it. Therefore, it's not going to be someone else's loss because of your negligence. So you're going to have to make that right. Verse 35, when one man's ox butts another one so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and share its price, and the dead beast also they shall share. So one ox got into a fight with another ox, maybe accidentally got in, killed him. That ox is sold, and the other ox, I guess you process it and divide it amongst yourself.
Yeah.
That's what happens. But there again, the ox is responsible for its actions or is held accountable for its actions, which would be responsibility. Yeah. Or if it is known that the ox has been accustomed to gore in the past and its owner has not kept it in, he shall repay ox for ox, and the dead beast shall be his. So in that case, you see the first case, 2 oxes, one kills the other. You don't have to replace the ox. It's just a freak animal action that happened. This is, okay, he's done this before, you kept him, and now he's killed somebody else's. You're going to have to replace the ox this time. So you're going to have to buy an ox for the person. So it's all about restoring someone back to the state they were in before you caused them harm.
Yeah.
which is a value for human life. It's a value for people's possessions. It's a respect for what God has given other people and he has given you. So you respectfully restore them to at least where they were.
Yeah.
Okay? Verse 22, if a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, he shall repay 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. So a man steals an ox, he gets caught. What has to happen? Well, now he has to buy 5 ox to replace the 1 ox.
Wow.
If it's sheep, it's 4 sheep for 1 sheep. So now we're starting to see a value of animals, because in that day, part of your wealth was according to how many animals you had. Such Abraham, many flocks. Jacob, many flocks. So here we see this. So you have to go over, above, and beyond to replace these things. Verse 2, if a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him. Now, this has to do with nighttime. Okay? If someone breaks into your house at night, you can't see them, you can't see if they're armed, and you kill them, your life doesn't have to be given for theirs. They should not have broken into your house, and, you defended your house. Yeah. Verse 3, but if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him, and he shall surely pay. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. So if the sun has risen on him, there shall be blood guilt for him. In other words, he's captured. He wasn't armed. You could see it. He's captured, and then this is the penalty. He shall surely pay. If he has nothing, he shall be sold for his theft. He should pay for where he broke in, what he stole, anything like that is what he pays for. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. So that's sold into the slavery. And there goes my voice.
So is that... So it's because... So at nighttime, if this happens, the guy who is the perpetrator, he dies. There's the guy who killed him. He's protecting his family, protecting his property. Nothing happens to him because he doesn't know who it is, doesn't know if he's armed. Can't see anything. So, but if it's daytime, it flips a little bit.
It does, because you can see what he has. You can see if he's armed. Now, if he's armed, you can protect your stuff. If he's not armed, you capture him and whatever he's stolen. This also, it doesn't kind of imply that if it's during the daytime, he can take the stuff away from your house and then you go get him. You know, that way he repays everything back and that's sort of thing.
Interesting.
If the stolen beast is found alive in his possession, so now we're in beast mode. Right?
We're in beast mode.
So they beast mode. So they he's decided to steal a beast, and we just told you that oxen and sheep were wealthy, you're wealthy if you have those. So if he steals one of those and it's found alive in his possession, whether it's an ox or a donkey or a sheep, he shall pay double. In other words, he stole it. Now he has to not only return what he stole, but he has to also give an extra donkey, ox, or sheep. So that's the double. If a man causes a field, now we get into fire. Okay? If a man causes a field or a vineyard to be grazed over, that means burned, or lets his beast loose and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution from the beast in his own field and in his own vineyard. All right. So if your ox, your cattle, whatever, gets into somebody else's field, they eat part of the stuff in the field, that guy has lost money. He can't sell it to make money for a harvest. So you have to pay him the harvest rate for whatever was ate by your beast. Okay. I guess you would catch the beast in the field eating it, is what you would do. And then you'd make a case And then the judges would say, the owner has to give you this amount of money, or they would make the owner do that. And here's the last one we're covering today, verse 6. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns, so that the stacked grain of the standing grain or field is consumed, he who started the fire shall make full restitution. So if you start a fire and it gets out of control and it burns somebody else's property, you have to make restitution for what that fire burned, because your fire has caused loss for someone else.
Yeah.
So this is in terms of you are responsible for your actions and no one else is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the way we like to point blame, even though it's our fault today, would not hold water in this particular system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've made it to chapter 22, verse 6. Yeah. And I'll, this is what I call the drier section of Exodus.
Yeah.
But to me, it's extremely interesting how this would all work out in everyday life. And then that they would go back to these case studies and say, okay, I have something similar.
I don't think I've ever understood it as a case study. And that makes perfect sense, because in law, you go, well, this happened here, is what we did, is what happened, and or here's the hypothetical thing that could happen. And that's exactly what it is.
Because there were people, because they would, I don't know if you know this, but they would pile sticks up to keep their animals from going into another field so they wouldn't eat it, right?
Okay.
Well, you leave sticks up for a certain amount of time and you start a fire, that is kindling eventually.
Yeah.
And then that can spread into somebody's field. So you see the progression even. The animals are eating, I set up a fence. Well, now that you set up a fence, you solved a problem. But what if this happens? Well, if fire happens, you still have to give restitution.
Yeah.
So we've had a full a lot of case studies about restoring people back to the economic level that they were before something happened unfortunate to them that was a result of something you did or neglected to do.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
So, to me, I'm kind of interested in it, excited about it, but, at the same time, this is the driest portion of Exodus. Yes. So, that said, I hope that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, it shows how much God values not just life, but he values our quality of life.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
And I think when we start looking at this, like, he's protecting our quality of life, he's protecting our life, he values everything that we have, and he values us, it's really encouraging to see that he has stepped in to man's depravity.
Yeah.
Because if he kept the Ten Commandments, we wouldn't have to have these case studies. Right? We never have to worry about this.
Right.
But because we can't keep the Ten Commandments, thank you, Romans, we can't keep the law, then he has to say, this is what you do when unfortunate circumstances occur. And they're going to occur because you're human and your heart is just desperately wicked.
Yeah. Who can know it?
Who can know it? Yeah. So that said, that's it. And until next week,